So this one's called a tumbao beat, and it's supposed to be a funk rhythm, but I'm still seemingly stuck in the samba sort of. I'll let the bass player work it out. Okay, so this one is 19.2, and the segment topic this time is called Composers and Musicians. And since I like this beat, I'm going to let it keep playing while I'm talking for a while. I don't want it to stop. So here's the deal. There are many more musicians than composers. Most musicians do not compose. Most musicians play stuff that has been written. Certainly in the classical world that's true, but it's also true in the world of tribute bands, and a lot of pop music is playing stuff that somebody else wrote. And almost all classical music, you could consider an orchestra to be a cover band. Even though don't tell them that. They'll be dreadfully upset if you tell a classical musician that they're playing in a cover band. But in my opinion, they are. So composers are people who create music, and musicians are people who play music, and most musicians don't actually know how to improvise. And most composers don't know how to play, especially classical composers. In fact, it used to be that if you majored in music in college, and I don't mean music education, I mean music, that you had to specify whether or not you were majoring in composition or you were majoring in performance. They were not considered to be the same topic. And they weren't. Composers are very happy being by themselves, isolated in their room. I think I've got to let this drummer fade out a little. Okay. He's still playing, but he's faded out. So composers are pretty solitary, and performers are pretty not solitary. Performers have to relate to audiences in real time. Composers are more relating to the score of the music. And they have a totally different relationship with music than performers do. In fact, most composers regard the definition of a piece of music as the score. And most performers regard the definition of a piece of music as the performance. And the performance may have a different arrangement, or different instruments, or different people playing on different days. So if you go to a conservatory, which I did a little bit, and I asked them, what's the definition of a song? They all looked at me out of the corner of their eye and said, well, it's the score, it's what's on the page. I said, yeah, well, as a jazz musician, I don't know how to write down what I'm playing a lot of the time. In fact, I bet that the majority of the world does not know how to write down what they're playing, and that most of the musicians in the world who are earning a living, don't read music, which of course is horrifying to say to a classical musician who spent the last 20 years perfecting becoming a reading monster, when you tell them that most of the musicians in the world who are earning a living cannot read music. And it's not one is bad and one is good. It's that the things that go on in a performance are different than the things that go on in the score. There are a lot of things that are hard to write down. Like, for example, if I'm playing the same song in a bunch of different ways because of the drummer I'm playing with, the accents are in a different place, the counting is in a different way, it doesn't necessarily sound like the same song to a composer. But to a jazz musician, they would go, oh yeah, that's such and such. You played that last week, but you played it with a different kind of tempo, and now you've speeded it up and you changed the accents. So composers and musicians really have a very different set of relationships with music. And then there's the third category, which are people who write the stuff that they play. They are the composers and they are the performer. And that, believe it or not, is not the majority of the time. But for me, that's the most fun part of the way things could possibly be. I would really like to have the ability to sort of make things up, which is why I'm going to let this drummer start playing again. I'm not changing the tempo. I'm just going to let him play me out. And I'm going to play the same chords, but do something different. You see, I'm a composer and a musician. Okay, well, the drummer's done, but I'm not. So, stop that. Okay, so we got different kinds of composers and musicians having different relationships with things. And if you're a composer and a musician, what you play has an awful lot to do with who you could convince to play with you. Uh-oh, he doesn't want to stop. I'll stop him. If you happen to have a buddy who plays one style of music and is available, and a different buddy who plays the style of music that you're used to playing, but they're 1,000 miles away, well, you pick the person who happens to be around and you go get the gig, because you don't want to turn down the gig. And if that means that stylistically the music is going to change, well, that's okay. Hey, it's supposed to be a co-creative thing. You know, collaboration is what's more sustainable than just doing your own thing. So I vote for being both a composer as a musician, not an either-or proposition. And that's the end of segment 19.2.